The video because
it's a video. Apparently not.
First question, what in your opinion is the most important aspect to really engage the viewer in a psychological aspect and like play with their mind?
It's a complex issue with me. I think the bad guy never feels he's the bad guy, and I think in the beginning, for instance, we turned the anti-hero into the hero. We turned the villain into the anti-hero into a hero because, like a dog, you don't want to see a dog kicked and beaten until it doesn't even scream and doesn't have anything left but eats the pain and absorbs the pain. The next time that dog's going to get kicked, anybody watching only wants the dog to do one thing, and that's get them before it happens again. Just get them. And so that's how I find it to be very interesting psychologically. Who does God favor in the spider web, the spider or the fly?
Favor the fly. Or spider?
There's that question. Next.
Okay, so in your experience of being on set and things like that, what has been the most effective camera trick or technique used for creating a horror film?
I think a revolutionary shot in the 2003 remake would have to be the single shot with pushes in on the dolly after Laura German blows her brains out in the van, and then they start out through the back of the van and they come to the back of the van and push into the window and then go right in through the window as her head falls. And you see right through the hole, and then you see the smoke come out all in one shot. I think that is a very revolutionary, great Daniel Pearl technique.
Being on set and stuff, how do they really emphasize the use of diegetic sounds or use of natural sounds over background noise and things like that?
Well, you mic the room and you get some clean tracks of static room noise, so you can match the looping should you have to do ADR, dialogue replacement, and it's just going to be the way it is. It's usually done with a boom. I'm not mic'd as often since I don't speak in the film, so most of it's picked up with the boom. It's the boom guy's job to get the sound and capture it, and then that's the live effects, the practical part. You do that, you get all that, and then you emphasize that with sound effects that you add later to parts that will enhance the movie and the feel of the film and manipulate the emotions.
Make sure you ask me to shove cameras in people's faces. I'm going to go and see what time screenings are for films, and then I'm going to have pictures up there.
So first question, in terms of editing, how would you portray a predator versus prey type imagery? So, for example, if an innocent protagonist was being hunted by, say, an evil villain or a monster, how would that be best edited?
So it's all about we'd have the innocent person at the front of the picture, perhaps looking around trying to see what they can see, and we put the predator slightly behind, so it's sort of like they're coming out of the shadows, something like that, perhaps creeping up, have the hands sort of in a sort of a threatening behaviour, that kind of thing. And then we do the lighting where the person in front is lit really well, but in the background perhaps they're just a little bit darker, like they're coming out of the shadows, so something kind of like that really.
So for our plot, we're going to be using a chessboard as our object of significance, and so every time the predator gets closer, we knock over a chess piece or it moves accordingly.
Pretty cool.
So how would this be best edited, do you think?
Oh, now you're asking. Are you talking like in a film or in a standard picture? Something like that. We'd probably go for something where you'd have to have the chess pieces in there. That would be prominent in the actual picture. You would have the sort of predator scene perhaps a little bit further back, and you perhaps have one of the chess pieces that have been knocked over, cracked, and perhaps some blood seeping out or something like that, that shows that you've got this kind of, this is what happens if it goes wrong.
In terms of what softwares you use, so what softwares is best used and what?
So for still imagery, we tend to use Adobe Photoshop. So we take the pictures, load it onto the computer, and then Adobe Photoshop, we just do loads of overlays, we do loads of cutouts, and sort of build the picture up layer upon layer. So Adobe Photoshop is our major, it's our major bit basically.
What version of Adobe Photoshop?
If I'm being honest, it doesn't really matter what version it is, as long as it's not really old. So some of the guys are using CC, because I've got an older laptop and I'm a bit older, I use an older version because I'm a bit of a dinosaur.
What, in your opinion, is the most important aspect to really engage the viewer and play with their mind, a psychological aspect?
In a horror context,
Yeah.
I reckon it's about what you don't see and what you don't say. I think this is in a way, why horror, if you're going to make a low budget movie and it's going to be your first movie, horror is a good genre to start in, because you don't need a big budget. You don't need a lot of things on the screen. You don't need those special effects. You just need to create a sense that something bad is going to happen, and that can be done by doing almost nothing. Creating a sense of atmosphere. Find a really good location is kind of key thing. If it's a good combination of a creepy setting that doesn't need a lot of lighting, because obviously that's a budget issue as well, then most of your work's being done for you. Just be in a space and have people confused, mystified, and have a sense that something bad is going to happen. You don't even have to show it. I mean, if you just look at stuff like Blair Witch, you never see the bad guy, you know. But one of the most successful horror movies of all time, just based on that psychological sense of we're in the shit. You just don't have to show the shit.
Okay. Great answer. Okay, so second question. So in your experience of being on set and helping in the film making aspect, are there any like effective camera tricks or techniques that you use to create a horror film? I should know about it.
Again, I mean, there's two interesting ways in which you can shoot a horror film. I think one of them is you don't see a lot of it these days, where it's just where the camera is just in one position. It's not constantly on the move. There's not lots of activity. You just have one interesting image, and maybe actors, doing whatever they're doing. But so it creates a sense of stillness, and that I think creates a sense of something happens, something take place. It creates tension by that sense of stillness. But the other one is to just bewilder an audience with lots of the opposite. Action, activity, camera movements. That tends to drive me mad. I prefer the ones that, back in the 70s, you used to get a tripod, lock off the camera, and just have stuff happen in front of it. There's one great scene in Rosemary's Baby where it's just a locked off shot of somebody on the phone. Their back is to them, she's sitting on the bed, and you only see half of her. Apparently, back in the day when it was shown to audiences, because you could only see half of her, people in the audience were doing this. So they wanted to peep around and see more. It's creating that sense of leaning in or leaning around, or just discomforting people by doing less.
So it's basically putting the audience in a vulnerable position where they can't see anything.
Exactly.
So exactly.
Don't underestimate the audience's imagination. Absolutely.
So leading off on that question, what are the most essential pieces of equipment you would need to really create a psychological horror film?
Lights or lighting. I think it's amazing the difference you can make by. I mean, if you're on a set, I've done this a couple of times. I've just gone onto set slightly early to avoid being my trailer, which is really boring, and just watch the director of photography and his team create mood. So you walk into a room that's like this, it's kind of bleak lighting, sort of clinical and really kind of uninteresting, and they'll just mask off bits, put new lights in, turn them down, light things from different, and on the screen, on the monitor, you'll see just slowly but surely a space become a work of art. But you do that with use of light, and with a horror movie it's kind of very nuanced use of light, maybe low light and shafts of light. And the problem with this is that the lighting is one of the most expensive aspects of filmmaking. So a good script, a good idea, that's dirt cheap. All you need is a good mind. But once you're shooting, efficient use of lights. Woodland is always good for creation of light. Creates dappled shade. It's kind of spooky. I would try and find an abandoned industrial building. They create their own light moods, and they just look a bit creepy.
Okay, so last question. What advice would you give us in terms of trying to get our plot across to the audience in such a short space of time?
How long are you planning to make the film?
Well, we're only allowed to do 5 minutes, so how can we get across our characters and what they're about in that short space of time?
Again, I would go back to your instinct might be to think, how much can we cram into this short space of time? I would look at it the other way and just do very little. It's surprising, you don't really have to do much to tell a story. You don't have to just pack it with imagery and ideas, and I would suggest having very minimal dialogue as well, because the ear works slower than the eye, and if you've only got 5 minutes, I would always keep in your mind less is more, and don't let's worry about packing lots of stuff in, especially with horror movies which are all about mood creation. So silence and even darkness kind of, would be interesting to do much less with your 5 minutes than you imagine, I think.
Okay. Thank you, that's great.